Hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking around for this post-performance conversation. My name is Janet Schroeder. I am scholar in residence here at The Pillow, and I will be moderating this conversation with Michelle Dorrance and Aaron Marcellus. So the way this will work is I'll get the conversation going, and then if we have some time, we'll open it up for questions from the audience. I want to start, Michelle, with a question for you about sound space. So the piece was originally created 10 years ago. It was originally premiered in St. Mark's Church and has been lots of other places. Can you talk about restaging it and new environments like the Sean and specifically like the joys and challenges of doing it in this space?
Thanks. And it's been really special to bring that work into this space, which is essentially a wooden box, right? Or like a long wooden rectangle. So I think what was so exceptional, I mean, really the reason the work exists is because of what I was curious and we were curious, the company at the time, which includes several current members. St. Mark's Church was just such a unique sonic environment, and you could hear like the footfall of a socked foot, from me to the back wall, like just a light. It was exceptional the way sound carried in the space. So we were really curious to explore all the different edges of what we know inside of our tradition. And we played a little bit with it the year the company was formed in 2011 in a tribute to Jimmy Slide, because we weren't allowed to dance. This is a regular thing for tap dance. If you all do not know this story, we are often forbidden to dance on beautiful wood floors, which is our instrument. And it's painful. And St. Mark's Church was no exception in that it is one of the oldest practicing churches in New York City, which is interesting. So we had to explore that space, that gorgeous wood floor, with other textures. So a leather-soled shoe, bare feet, socked feet. So the larger work, the full evening work, explored the space in that way. And we honor it in spaces like this by the piece that you saw open this evening we call Altar, because it was on the altar of the church, right? So we still call that, and we try to stage it the way we did in the church. Now, what's unique to the Sean, of course, is that, and this is unique to this theater, I'm going to say maybe there's one other theater that had wooden walls, but we did not play them. We couldn't get close to them. What inspired us in this space is a section that we call Thunder. And that originally happened in the balcony of the church where folks are not sat. It's in fact, they're sat underneath it. And it's really hard to recreate that unless you're in an environment like this. So in recreating Thunder, when we actually came, Mondays are usually dark for the production crew here at The Pillow, but they were generous. Jason opened the doors for us so that we could play a little bit in this space. And usually we do various gradations of a rumble, which is like the equivalent of a drum roll. So it's our double stroke roll. So we will use this roll, like that idea, and we'll use sort of like different attacks around the space, maybe even different textures, like a tap shoe with aluminum taps or a leather sole. We play around with different things, but here it felt right to start with playing our bodies and then playing the actual walls of the space before we played our feet. And so like that there is this environment that not only supports the sound and carries the sound, but itself is playable, was what was so fun and unique in this space. And of course, being able to dance a little on a wood floor to get to those spaces, whereas we're usually like creeping in the darkness. I mean, also a very accessible pathway is lit, so we better do something in it, as opposed to sneaking through a very dark house. Anyway, so sorry, that was really long. And we're both ADD. I don't know if we should even say that ahead of time. So yeah, I'll work on being more concise, but we should warn them before we do this.
I do have a follow-up for you about Thunder. Out here in the audience, for me, it feels sort of like magical and otherworldly as that sound is traveling all the way around us. You're up here. I want to know what that moment is like for you in terms of sound when you're up here on the stage.
I love hearing it move through the space. That's really special to me. I mean, I have to say my favorite vantage point, because when we experimented with it, I sat in all the different, large chunks of the audience to listen, and that you all have the best seat for that section. I do love being up here, but and the way different things resonate depending on where you're sitting is a very different experience, right? And I can see outlines of heads because of the way that the walkways are lit and the aisles are lit. So I see people, I can watch you respond to it, and that's really cool. And that is also not something that happens in other theaters. So this was a unique experience for me to kind of see, you can see people hear something, which is a strange observation. I mean, I don't think it's a strange observation. It's really gorgeous. You could hear people first hear Claudia was down here, down house right. You could hear people go, oh, because I, step off of the floor to try to like soften what we're trying to listen to, and you can see people listen more acutely, or at least I think that's what's happening. I hope.
Totally, yeah. Thank you. Aaron, I'm going to ask you a question now about composing music for tap dance. You have, participated in musical compositions for the company before. You're in lots of programs credited with contributing to compositions, but this is yours. Can you talk about how you approached composing music for tap dance?
Fearfully. Very carefully. No, really, like you said, I've been performing with Dorrance Dance and co-collaborating, co-writing, co-composing for years, over a decade at this point. And so it was just really more humbling to be able to do it and know the dancers that I'm composing for, and know Michelle. You know what I mean? I've been blessed to sort of set music for other theater companies and singer-songwriter type of stuff, but this has a very super special place in my heart, and the individuals that dance. And so everything was really about what would they like. You know what I mean? I could see them doing this. I could hear Burke doing this. I could see Michelle, you know what I mean? So I wanted to really lend them something or give them something that they would love to dance to. And when Michelle was like, can you please do this? I said, well, what do you want? Fast or slow, like funky or jazzy? I'm not a jazz musician. We can fake it. We have this thing called doo-doo jazz that we do, which is terrible and stinky, and it's just not jazz at all, but somehow people go, I love jazz. And I was just like, Mash, what do you want? And she said, brother, I don't want to think. She said, I just want to feel. And I want it to feel good, and I trust you. And so my takeaway from that conversation was, I also want to feel. We put out so much content and produce so much for our audiences that sometimes we forget to do it for us. You have to sit, wake up with your voice or your instrument or whatever you do and say, it's okay for me to be my own muse, and let you enjoy that process. So I just did it purely. I didn't do it with any like, I'm gonna do that. Like, I don't even have that type of depth of musical training, in a sense, to name what I wanted. I just knew what I wanted to feel. So it was very slow and open. I answered a few questions earlier, and I said it's kind of an oxymoron because it had to happen really fast. I had 3 months, but I took my time within that. And it felt like a long time until there was no time.
Michelle, what was that process like for you of collaborating with Aaron on this piece?
It was a dream, and I think what Aaron described is incredibly accurate. I think I just wanted to step into the space that you were in musically, what was on your heart, what was on your spirit to create. And what blew me away was just that Aaron set us up, set me up to speak like very personally. Immediately upon hearing these tunes, I was invited into parts of my past as a tap dancer in New York. And corralling what is this piece and what, it's rooted in our relationship, but also, we met in New York. We met in the heart of the city. We met like in my tap class. I didn't even know he was this brilliant vocalist. It's crazy, the whole story. And I don't even think it was pointed with, maybe sort of without knowing it. Aaron invited me into this space that was an intersection of Gregory Hines and Savion Glover for a young teenage me, and a 17-year-old that moved to New York City that was obsessed with that funk music that Savion was making. And it really was. It was, and this is, Gregory invited us in the 80s, and then Savion, took off running. As far as rhythmic sensibility is concerned, it was thrilling. And I was obsessed with funk music in high school. So that first really funky tune, I was like, what? I mean, and that, there wasn't an order. Aaron didn't necessarily lay these things out with an order. In fact, the first tune that we started working on that just struck me right away was the tune that we have, Close the Work, middle surname. And that immediately made me think of Jimmy Slide. Once again, I mean, he's had such an influence on our generation. And of course, for those of you who have not checked out the archives, this is a big archival plug. Please go watch our elder, Dr. Jimmy Slide, legendary tap dancer, unique voice, incredible inspiration. In the archives, you'll see him with Diane Walker. I think you'll see him in an evening he curated. Is that true, right? Yeah, I think that's what, anyway, sorry. Please go to the archives, check out Jimmy's Slide. But I say that to say that piece just felt like it was sweeping us. It should sweep us back and forth across the stage. So I just wanted to say that receiving that music invited, and then Contents Under Pressure, the second tune that we danced to with them brought us into this space that to me also felt like who I just mentioned, one of our elders who we love, who's also really the griot of the tap community, Diane Walker. There's so many little moments there that made me think of her. There's a moment for Sam Weber. There are all these moments that really brought me into that period of time when I moved to New York. Even though, of course, those are influences that exist in my life throughout my life, there was a real, I mean, this is, when you're a young person, carving out space for yourself artistically, it exists inside of your mind and your being. And being in New York City, it's just, you just feel expansive. So it took me to a very focused place in each of those moments, if that makes sense.
I can see Jimmy Slide. I can see those dancers in the choreography and in the sliding, in the movement, in the tiny little Sam Weber, tiny little taps. Aaron, can you talk a little bit about the technology that you're using when you're out here singing on your own? I'm sure people want to understand, how is that happening?
Absolutely. I don't actually understand it all myself. It's magic. I do this conjuring right before the show, and I'm kidding. Nicholas Van Young, who is a mastermind of technical music, and rhythm and tap. And so the technology started with him doing a solo, and he, would place these. I don't know if you even know what this is, but there's a guitar cable, 1/4-inch cable that goes into a fob into a tap board, which is connected to a program on the computer called Ableton Live. You can use it to record, but most people use it for live work. And so basically he patched all these sounds into his board. And so you could hear the percussive nature of his tap, but you could also hear somehow when he connected it to the Wii controller through another program called Oscillator, you could hear his delays and reverbs and all these special sounds. It was some pretty far out stuff for tap dance that I had ever seen.
And you can catch it in the archives.
You can catch it in the archives.
You can catch it in the archives. ETM, the initial approach.
Yeah.
ETM, double down.
Yes.
Check them out.
That's it. Come on.
I'll be your marketing.
So anyway, long story short, one day he said, man, it would be cool to try some stuff with your voice. So I sang along with him with his solo. And then he said, actually, I want you to loop. And then I just kind of tap. And that sort of started this thing. And so they have this space in New York City on the Lower East Side called Dirty Space. It's in, what's the name of the school?
It's an old public school, but it's called the Clemente now.
It's called the Clemente, art gallery, anyway. Michelle has a space there. And we call it Dirty Space because it's just a small room and it's quite dirty. It's a urinal, an old urinal, but it's not functional. Anyway, there's dust everywhere, and we went in there. And so all I had was this Wiimote and the computer and the little speaker, and Michelle and Nicholas going, all right, let's try this stuff.
We have a video of Aaron doing it for the first time, and he has such innate time. It was exceptional. from the very first time. And then immediately he's also making jokes. I mean, like we have our own archival footage of that moment.
Just, playing with it. So in that Wii controller, there's a looper, there's delay, there's reverb, there's some like other effects in it. Those can be interchanged. You can change them out, you can add to them.
So you programmed the Wii
Nicholas
remote.
actually programmed
Nicholas
them.
programmed
Yeah.
it. Okay.
And everything.
And we'd come up like, Aaron would be like, well, could I do this? And Nick was like, well, yeah, let me figure it out. And he'd like spend some time at the computer, like everything, reverb, all the different things. I'm sorry. We would dream up some things and Nicholas would dream with us and literally figure out how to do it. I just wanted to say that. And then also, when you started using the pitch and yaw and everything was...
Snafu with that, but there's this one button on there that once I've created whatever loop or composition, I can sort of mute it and then fade it out and play with that. And so I tried to fade it out, but it was a little more harsh than what my hands were like, whoa. And then I didn't stop the loop. I was like, oh man, I messed it up. You wouldn't have known, but anyway.
I mean, it's a skill, right? Your vocal skills, the tap dancing skills, but also this like using this technology it's a skill that you all are like cultivating to be able to make this happen.
Yeah, it's funny to call it an instrument at this point, that I have to continue to relearn as I learn myself. As you get older, what was ETM? What year was that? 2014. So I've been using this instrument since 2014. As your body changes, your ears change, you hear things differently. It is not quantized, which means it doesn't start, there's no timing. If I start a rhythm, I have to stick with it. I have to be able to match myself perfectly, or else you're gonna hear the imperfections. Sometimes it's nice and sometimes it's distracting, depending on what house or what room you're in. And sometimes with the speakers on the side and my ear monitors versus what's coming back to me, it can get too much, it can be too little. So every time it's a learning. I ask Chris, hey, can I spend some time just in here with no tap dancers, because tap dancers are noisy and they're like, they don't realize they want to listen to you do your thing, but they're also doing this stuff with their feet while it's just like a nervous twitch they all have. They're just like, I'm like, hey, I can't do this with you doing that. Can we just have, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. I'm really blessed to use it.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm recognizing the time, and I think we are out of time. So I want to thank you two for this amazing performance, for this conversation. Oh, Aaron has one more thing to say.
I just have to big shout out to the musicians who are my comrades. Gregory Richardson, who is Dorrance Dance's music director, Matt Parker, who's my brother, who is also has his own record company and the Matt Parker Trio, and Kyle Everett, who was on drums. This work, I composed it, but definitely in collaboration with these gentlemen. I threw them a bunch of music and said, how do you want to play it? What's best for your instrument? And they just took it and helped bring it alive. So I can't sit here without giving honor to those gentlemen.
I love to do the same thing. And I know you heard about all of the kind of endless alums that were in this program. Claudia Raharjanoto and I are not alums of the school, but Claudia, Luke Hickey, Addie Loving, and Dylan Such, the youngest folks. Sterling Harris has also jumped in with us this year, and Leonardo Sandoval, who hopefully a lot of you have seen here with his own company last year, with Gregory Richardson, the two of them, Music from the Soul. This is just an exceptional group of folks, and I really want to shout out, Aaron mentioned her earlier very quickly, Elizabeth Burke, our dance captain, who in rehearsal fell and broke both bones in her wrist and had surgery on the Monday we arrived here. So I know, so please send some good energy to Elizabeth, who literally has held us together for the history of the company, I have to say. That's my little sister, and I'm so grateful for all the dancers as well.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful afternoon.